conversation.
Yeah, what I was saying was, depending on what you, because I need to have a proper look at your trench to see what you've got up front. And if you think it's still continuing or falling off, because one of the things that Martin was saying was that he found that it got to a certain point, everything started to fall into the moat. Yeah. If we haven't got to the point where it's starting to fall into the moat, or even if we have, it'd be nice to see that point by moving it this way.
You're moving your lips and making a sound that I would be making.
Good.
But you're making them at a slightly higher pitch than I am.
Right, okay.
But apart from that, you're sounding pretty good.
Pitch.
One thing, I think if we could just take that rubble field up a bit, we might not need to extend the trench.
Well,
we find there's nothing behind it.
I've been down there this morning and kind of looking at the trench and thinking, okay, where am I going to put my sections in? And
You're going to do some slots.
Oh yes,
yeah. Excellent.
And I mean, that was the whole problem. I tell you what, that trench is looking smart. We photographed it last night, but the light is so much better now. Got a bit of much. Steve's going to go down and get some decent light. It is looking nice this morning. But no, I mean, when
he's going to move this on, we've got 3 other trenches to talk about.
Once she's out of the way, then I think the southern end is the one that does the.
Okay, so you're saying you want to extend. You're happy.
Yeah, I do. I agree. But I think we may solve it within the area we've got.
Yeah, I think we are getting close to the moat because, like I said to you yesterday, that is the soil at that end is getting a little bit more clay.
And Martin, if we extend this and find a mirror image of the other side that you found here, that would confirm the presence of a big gateway there. That does the job.
Well, there's no doubt there's a big gateway there, and you've now found the other side. What is really very confusing at the moment is that half-mortared, half-not-mortared brick wall going right across the gate.
Yeah, well that's right.
I think we're assuming that's later, aren't we?
It's not where I was wondering if, bearing in mind we've got a wooden bridge going over here. Isn't the point at which the wood is coming up inside the gate, is it, from the bridge?
I think, well, my view, as Jackie, about that trench is, from looking at our photographs of the other side, is that we're still well above the actual final 1568
Right.
but Phil's slots will solve that.
Right.
But equally, going back to what you're saying, it also comes back to it would be nice to know where our trench is relative to the moat.
Yes, it would.
Which is back to what you were saying.
And we
So
go
extend, go further down. Trench 2.
At the moment, I mean, this cellar is really weird. We've got to get that cleared out. That is just really strange.
With Rakshar, where she was going down in that cellar area.
What we haven't got at the moment is the other side cleared up. So I'd like to see the other side that cleared up. The cellar is really quite intriguing because if this is the Great Hall, you wouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if we, even if it's, well, whichever it is, whether it's a Great Hall or whether it's the chapel or whatever it is, it's a funny place to put a cellar if it's on the ground floor.
Yes. And am I right in thinking the cellar was the place in the past where we're likely to find some possible pottery finds? It occasionally accumulates.
Simply because we have more demolition artists.
We've got a better set.
Got a better chance. I must have put in the alternative view. That's a very funny shape for a cellar.
Why are people calling it a cellar?
Everybody's shot
Well,
down.
It's going
because it's a hole in the ground at the moment inside the building.
Yeah, there's no evidence on the radar for it going down to any depth.
It's weird that it didn't come up, isn't it?
The point about that is that brickwork, the flat brickwork that you've got, is that the floor of the outside part? You know, that flat brickwork you've got.
Well,
is that
it not
the
that
surface?
Is it not part of that buttress?
I think it may be just the level of brick.
And what level does that represent? How far are we above the original ground level? We don't know that.
We don't really know
so
that.
what John is implying, I assume from what you're implying, is it's not necessarily a cellar. It could just be the first.
It could, but it's a small room though. So why would you have a small room in there? I think that's why we think it might be a cellar.
Yes.
There's the very deep structure, which might be a cellar, or given the fact that it's only a certain way down to a cellar, or it might be, I'm afraid, a latrine pit.
Why would you put a latrine pit somewhere like that?
Well, there's one here that we excavated intact, and that
Well,
is
that's-
about
that-
the same sort of size.
But it's out here.
Does it
It's
look
not
like
right
that
in the
one?
middle. It's not
I
in the
know,
middle of Bengal.
but they're very funny where those are.
They're funny about the toilets, are
They
they?
have
Okay.
it right under
You don't want to walk that far at night, do you?
Well,
stagger, you mean?
yeah.
well, the only way to find out is to clear it out, and if need be, we all go down if we
Lovely.
get to it.
Trench Street.
Well,
Ian, you've probably seen it. Ian's now down on your wall, as I
Right.
think
I'm
of it.
greatly relieved.
Yes, and it's there, and it
Yeah.
looks like Martin said.
Yeah.
He's going to carry on down that because one of the things we were talking about was getting the width of that.
yeah,
back.
confirming the
Yeah,
width.
why is it so thick, that wall?
Yeah.
And are we missing another thick wall? Because there really should be two thick walls because there's a great big
It's the
whopping
height.
wall.
That's it.
Yeah.
The thicker your wall, the thicker your wall, the higher it's likely to be.
Right.
That's why it's so interesting.
And the plan this morning, John's here with the geophysics, is John, we think, has now filled in that gap and he's waiting to process it.
Lovely.
The gap
We've still got
between-
a bit of a gap, haven't we?
Yeah, there's still a bit of a gap.
But we've extended down over where the line of the moat is.
Yeah.
We've then got a small gap. And so we've gone over where the theoretical
And the-
locations of the towers
Well, the
are.
towers are
And the
right.
view
And they
is,
don't show.
Martin, that
Did you go right the way?
Could you get
Sorry,
a
I just
print
want to
out?
double
Is
check,
that being...
John.
Yeah.
John,
Because we don't know how wide that base court is likely to be. Have you gone the full width?
No, we haven't.
I think we
not
need to
yet.
do that.
Yeah, well, that's-
because we don't know how wide
and
it
it
is.
might be adequate that you do one side first, John, if you,
Yes.
Yeah.
it cuts
Yeah.
your cloth, because theoretically whatever this base score is, it should have both sides.
Can I say one thing about
Yeah,
it?
sure.
You have, John, found already something up here. I've seen the latest plot yesterday.
I was going to come back to that in a
Oh, yeah.
minute,
You
because
come
the
back,
thing
yeah.
that is
There's
very
something
suspicious
there.
about it is
Yeah.
that although there's obviously no gatehouse there is activity going through where the gatehouse would be.
I have a suggestion.
Ah, right, okay.
Jackie, I've been thinking about this all night.
It must-
The
it
documents
must-
say it's there.
Yeah.
Now the question is, suppose the outer court has been heavily robbed and
Yeah,
stone,
yeah.
and we're only faced with rubber trenches where the ranges should be, except for where the gatehouse is,
Yeah.
where you've got some of the gatehouse left.
Our problem at that point is that we obviously can't just put trenches in anywhere.
No, I am-
So what we're waiting for is two things. One, the joining piece of John's geophysics, and then John can take this side, or whatever side, whichever we're feeling lucky, and see if we've got him, because we're not going to put anything in that's not recognisable on the geophys, and there's no point putting stuff in those lanes yet if there's a chance.
That's what I
there's a
was going to
whopping
wait
thing
for.
there.
I wanted to wait to see what was up here before we go. But the fact of the matter is that there are north-south lines going through where the gatehouse would be.
Yes.
It isn't the gatehouse itself, but it does suggest that there was a lot of traffic going through there that's made those marks. And bearing in mind
That's not
that
farm track.
no,
is it?
because the
No,
farm
no,
track goes
it's
across
like that.
here.
Yeah.
So there's something there. So if we don't find anything else, I think
So I
it'd be
think
worthwhile
once
looking
we've
at it.
seen that geophysics and that geophysics, we might
can make a
finally
decision.
decide should we actually put something in there, because
Yeah.
it is on the
What
research.
I think it would be
John,
wise.